The Dyatlov Pass 2024. New forensic evidence just rewrote everything. 9 hikers walked into that mountain in 1959. Science just proved they weren't alone. The tent was cut open from the inside. In the middle of the night in -30 degrees. They ran out barefoot into a Siberian blizzard. And not a single one of them ever made it back. For 65 years, the Dyatlov Pass incident has been called the greatest unsolved mystery in mountaineering history.
Avalanche, military weapons testing, infrasound-induced panic, katabatic winds. Every theory has eventually collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. But in 2024, a team of independent forensic analysts applied modern ballistic trauma mapping and low-frequency acoustic modeling to the original Soviet autopsy data. What they found doesn't just challenge the leading theories, it quietly, methodically dismantles all of them. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, the question won't be, what happened on that mountain? The question will be, why it took this long for anyone to look. January 23, 1959. 10 experienced hikers depart from the city of Ivdel in the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. Their leader is Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student with a flawless track record in winter expeditions. The group's destination is Otorten Mountain, a Grade 2 route, challenging but well within their abilities. 1 member turns back early due to illness. 9 continue. On February the 1st, they set up camp on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, a name that translates in the local Mansi language as Dead Mountain. It's the last confirmed position of any of them alive. When they fail to return on schedule, a rescue operation is launched. On February the 26th, searchers find the tent. It has been slashed open from the inside. Their belongings, boots, coats, and supplies are all still inside. The hikers are gone. The bodies are recovered in stages over the following weeks. What the investigators find is deeply disturbing. 2 victims show signs of massive internal trauma, fractured ribs, a crushed chest, consistent with impacts of extraordinary force. 1 woman is missing her tongue. 3 others show no visible external injuries whatsoever, yet they are dead. The Soviet investigation closes the case in May 1959 with a single, haunting conclusion. The hikers died as a result of an unknown compelling force. That file stays closed for 3 decades. When Soviet archives partially opened in the 1990s, researchers expected clarity. Instead, they found new reasons to be disturbed. The internal injuries on 2 of the victims, Nikolai Thibault-Brignolel and Lyudmila Dubinina, were described by the original forensic examiner as comparable to the force of a car crash. Yet there were no external bruises, no marks consistent with a beating or fall. The force had come from within, or from something that left no surface trace. Then there's the clothing. Several items recovered from the hikers tested positive for elevated levels of radioactive contamination, specifically beta radiation. The Soviet authorities offered no explanation. This fact was buried in the report's footnotes and largely ignored. And then there's the orange glow. Multiple independent witnesses in the region, including search party members and local Mansi hunters, reported seeing strange, glowing orbs moving across the sky above the pass on the night of February the 1st. These accounts were collected, noted, and filed away. The avalanche theory, for years the most scientifically credible explanation, has its own fatal problem. The slope gradient at the campsite is approximately 23 degrees. Most avalanche models require a minimum of 30 degrees to initiate a natural slide. A 2021 study by Swiss avalanche researchers attempted to resolve this using simulation modeling, and while they argued it was possible, they acknowledged that no physical evidence of an avalanche, no debris field, no compression layer, no displaced snowpack was ever found at the scene. Something else happened there. If you're finding this as unsettling as I am, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, because what comes next is where it gets genuinely difficult to explain. The 2024 forensic re-examination centers on two primary analytical frameworks that simply didn't exist in 1959. The first is ballistic trauma mapping, a technique developed for modern forensic pathology that reconstructs the directional origin of blunt force injuries based on fracture propagation patterns in bone. When applied retroactively to the detailed skeletal photographs and measurements preserved in the Soviet autopsy files, the results are striking. The force vectors for the chest and skull injuries point upward and inward, not downward or lateral as you would expect from a fall, a collapse, or an avalanche strike. The trauma pattern is more consistent with a compression wave, a pressure event radiating outward from a central point. The second framework is infrasound analysis. Infrasound, sound frequencies below 20 Hz, inaudible to the human ear, is known to produce profound psychological and physiological effects at sufficient intensity. Symptoms include sudden, inexplicable terror, disorientation, visual disturbances, and in extreme cases, organ damage from resonant vibration. Certain mountain passes act as natural infrasound funnels under specific atmospheric conditions. Kolat-Shackle's topography, fed through modern acoustic modeling software, shows that under the precise wind conditions recorded in that region on the night of February 1st, 1959, the pass could have generated infrasound pulses in the 7 to 9 Hz range, the frequency band most associated with acute psychological breakdown in human subjects. This doesn't explain the radioactivity. It doesn't explain the glowing orbs, but it begins to explain why 9 experienced, rational, highly trained mountaineers cut their own tent open and ran into a blizzard without their shoes. 3 serious explanations now stand in competition. The first is the military weapons test theory. The Soviet military conducted extensive classified testing in the Ural region throughout the late 1950s. A pressure-based or acoustic weapon that produces internal trauma without surface bruising, combined with radioactive contamination of clothing, fits this framework with uncomfortable precision. Proponents argue the glowing orbs were test projectiles. The case closure, citing an unknown compelling force, was, on this reading, deliberate. The second is the natural infrasound catastrophe theory. A rare but documented atmospheric event generates a sustained infrasound pulse. The group panics. They flee. Some die of hypothermia. Others, in their disoriented flight, fall into a ravine, producing the blunt force injuries. It's the most scientifically grounded explanation, but it still cannot account for the radiation. The third theory, and the one that the 2024 forensic team treats most cautiously but refuses to dismiss, is a combination event. A natural infrasound trigger that coincided with proximity to an unacknowledged military test in the same airspace on the same night. 2 independent catastrophic events. One horrific, outcome. Here is what makes the 2024 findings genuinely difficult to set aside. The forensic team cross-referenced their trauma vectors with the positions in which the bodies were found. 3 hikers, recovered furthest from the tent, were arranged in a configuration that suggests they were moving towards something, not away from it, in the direction of the light sources reported by witnesses. They didn't only run from something that night, at least 3 of them ran toward it. 65 years, 9 lives, and science is still pulling new threads from that mountain. The Dyatlov Pass incident isn't a cold case. It's a case that keeps getting colder the deeper you go. And the 2024 forensic analysis suggests we have been asking the right questions in entirely the wrong direction. What do I think happened? I think something found them first. But I want to know what you think. Was this a military cover-up? A natural phenomenon we still don't fully understand? Or something else entirely? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one. If this video made you think, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this research reach more people. Subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up, because we are going deeper into those Soviet archives next time. The mountain isn't done talking.